82% of that said they would consider it because of the low price point and the great tech. And I think that's really what the Chinese have done incredibly well.
They're not going to have the impact that they think they're going to have. And then in 3 to 5 years' time, we might see them leave the market.
Glenn.
Craig. Welcome to episode 4 of the AutoTalk Podcast.
Episode 4. And have you seen our viewing figures for 1 and 2?
Through the roof. I think we broke the counter, actually.
I can't leave the house now without having groupies chasing me for autographs and everything. It's embarrassing.
I actually check every morning when I wake up.
Excellent. Well, today we've got another exciting episode. Do you know what this one's called?
What's it called, Craig?
Oh, it's called The Chinese Takeaway.
And what's the Chinese takeaway about, Craig?
The Chinese takeaway is, I'm hoping after the next 10 minutes that we can give this audience some information, some research, and some real experience about what's going on in the marketplace with the introduction of all the new Chinese brands that are hitting the road. I'm
seeing them everywhere. Every day I see more and more on the road. I mean, tell us, what is going on?
You know, you said about seeing more and more. I think we've probably given our credentials, but we've been in this market a long time, and I always pride myself on that I can always work out which car is which. I always test myself when I'm coming down Shakeside Road and I see the rear headlights or the rear lights on a car. I can work out pretty much what car it is. I haven't got a clue these days. Not a clue.
Yeah.
And even when I get close to the car, I can't even pronunciate some of the the names of the Hong Kui and stuff like that. So
I think it's pronounced Hong Shi.
There you go. You see, there's a case in point that I don't even know the names of some of these cars. But yeah, it's rapid. And not only are we seeing these cars hit the road, but online we're seeing, a huge increase in demand for these cars. So what we are going to do today is I'm going to share some insights and research, and then it'd be great for you to talk about the real life stuff. You're talking to the dealers and the OEMs and the marketing teams about what's going on.
Sounds good.
If we look at it from a numbers point of view, we're seeing year on year, and this is obviously from a low base, but we're seeing demand for Chinese brands in total on our site increase by 150%, right?
Okay.
And we're seeing a 40% growth month on month in the last sort of 6 months. So it's really starting to ramp up. This thing is not slowing down.
Is that listings or inquiries?
This is demand. This is search and leads.
Okay.
So this is not listings because, of course, our site is predominantly used car listings. There are not many used Chinese cars on the road at the moment. They're all new. So this is more aimed at our new car side of the website. So people are doing research, they're comparing, contrasting, and there's huge interest around the Chinese brands. So we did a cheeky bit of research. We pushed it out to our loyal and faithful consumer database who responded, and it was really interesting.
Yeah.
So 71% of our respondents said that they would consider a Chinese brand.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And 82% of that said they would consider it because of the low price point and the great tech. And I think that's really what the Chinese have done incredibly well.
Yeah.
It's not all fantastic news for the Chinese. 50% of our audience said they still have some big concerns over quality, and I think the Chinese brands have really got to deal with that and tackle that.
Yeah.
And some of that only comes down to time. Being around for a long time gives you that kind of trust, but that's a challenge for them. Brand loyalty, I'd be good to get your feedback on this in a minute, but brand loyalty, our consumers are saying that half of them are kind of brand loyal to certain brands. And when we asked them which brands that they recognize in the Chinese manufacturing world, they actually started to recall some of the Chinese brands, which I think is really interesting. Obviously MG's been here for probably 10 years, I think 9-10 years.
Yeah.
But apart from that, the rest of them have only sort of been here 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
And already they're starting to recall Jatour, they're recalling BYD, which has only been here 12 months, I think.
Exactly.
MG, of course. So, it's really interesting to see that they're getting recall already, and they're not spending a lot of money on advertising realistically either. So, I think from our perspective, we can see the demand, we can see the interest, and we can understand why there's interest. But what are you hearing from the OEMs and the dealers?
Well, it's such an interesting topic. I think a year or two ago, every meeting we went to at a dealer conference or at a regional head office or at a dealer group, EVs were the hot topic. Now it's EVs and the Chinese brands. And of course, some of the Chinese brands are EVs like BYDs, and some are the internal combustion engines. So I think there's a few, there's a few things we're seeing, much the same as you. You know, we've seen as far as secondhand transactions on used cars, we've seen that double. But as you said, they just haven't been here long enough. I think it's only in the last 12 to 18 months that a high enough volume of these have been sold new. And it's going to be really interesting to see in 3 to 5 to 7 years' time how these fare as used cars. You know, what's the condition of the car like? What's broken? What's works? What's still under warranty? What can you get spare parts for? And whether, given those factors, they have the same residual value in the market as a Nissan or a Toyota or a Hyundai or a Kia, where people understand what the after-sales support is. Because as much as these cars might have a 10-year warranty on them, no one's really sure, can you get parts? Will they still even be in the market in 10 years' time? So I think there's a lot of hesitation around that. That's one theme that we tend to see. The other really interesting theme is when we look at all the UAE-based dealer groups, almost every dealer group has picked up 1 or 2 Chinese brands to sell. I think that's so interesting because it's really a hedge against, you know, consumers moving to the Chinese brands, and you're seeing huge amounts of investment in the network. You know, you're seeing AGMC roll Geely out across the country. Rostamani they've got Zeekr, they've got Smart. Everyone's picking up a couple of these brands. But I don't think all brands are going to be equal either. Some brands I think are going to take off, and some of these Chinese brands, like any car brand, I think they're not going to have the impact that they think they're going to have. And then in 3 to 5 years' time, we might see them leave the market. So I think it's still really early days, and we don't know what's going to happen. And the third and final thing that we're seeing is what you said is right. Consumers love the technology and the price point. I think if you're looking at a compact sedan or a compact SUV in that under 100,000 dirham price category, if you place value on technology, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. But if you're spending 100,000 dirhams, in my opinion, there's more to the purchase than just technology. It's engine, it's fuel consumption, it's after-sales support, it's quality of the vehicle, it's longevity, it's all of these things. And I think this is still where the unknown's going to be. So I think what's really interesting is how the traditional players will try and combat that. Will they meet on price point? They're also got, you know, they're always cycling through new models, so I'm sure they'll catch up very quickly on the technology side of things. But how are they going to market against some of these strengths that they have, which the Chinese brands don't?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, the quality part of it is the proof's in the pudding, right? And we have to wait and see, because you just don't know. And there are some fantastic warranties out there, but what the service would be like, and as you say, getting the parts, I think all that will tell. But, you know, if you look at some of the brands that are over here, and if you look at the investments that they've made in the factories, they're actually using the same machinery that are used to build premium European spec cars, right? They're the same robots and the same machinery that build the same cars.
Well, of course, in the last 10 years, cars have become so componentized that, you know, everyone's buying the same $500 lane keeping assist from Bosch or Continental or a Chinese version of that, and they're putting that same component into every car. So it's really democratized the technology across the cars.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the Chinese actually have got it right in some respects in terms of, you know, invest in the technology, give people a great experience. Because look, over here, you can't drive very fast anyway, right? Because you just get zapped with speed cameras wherever you go, right? So there's no point. I mean, yes, if you're off-roading, and that's a different experience, but if you're on the road, actually stay within the speed limits. There's no point in going above. You're going to get zapped, and it's going to cost you a fortune. So enjoy the experience inside, right? Have the screens, have the lovely cooling seats, and I think one of the Exceed models, the passenger seat, there's a lumbar support, and I think that comes up to rest your feet. So like sitting in a big armchair. I think they're the right things, because that's what people will want, right? And the speed cameras aren't going to go away. There's going to be more of them, I guess, rather than less of them.
Yeah, that's it. And, you know, everything has a price. If something's cheap enough, it appeals to everyone. So I think they've done very well on the price point as well.
You know, and I'm sure you're the same, at dinner parties, when the interesting conversations stops and people start talking about cars, I'm the man that they turn to. And normally at a dinner party, there's a couple of people that are interested. I was at one a couple of weeks ago. There was 8 of us, and everybody, apart from my wife, everyone else had some sort of interaction with a Chinese car. Either they'd been researching it or test driven it, or were considering it for their next purchase. And it was a really interesting moment where everybody joined in a conversation about cars, which I've never had before, right? Normally, maybe the men will talk about it and the women will turn away, or there might be one lady who's really into cars who wants to have a chat. But everyone had an experience or a brand or something, and they wanted to ask me about, well, does this Exceed? What's it like? The J Tour? Is it really a Land Rover, or what is it? So there's definitely a massive interest, and we can see that in our data.
Yeah, I think it's captured everyone's attention. I don't think they're going away anywhere soon. I think it's going to be really interesting how it plays out over the next 5 to 10 years in this market.
Yeah, I mean, well, not just this market, I suppose, but globally. I mean, one thing that I've read is that the Chinese manufacturers are going to have to consolidate, right?
Yeah.
The global market, the domestic market isn't, but the global market also isn't big enough for, I think it's 138 brands that they've got, something like that. So we will see mass consolidation. What do you think that could do to the market with mass consolidation?
Well, it's really interesting because so many of the Chinese brands are owned by the same parent company, and they're positioning themselves at different price points. Not dissimilar to traditional manufacturers like Volkswagen Group, with a Volkswagen, a Skoda, an Audi, and a Porsche. Geely and SAIC have got the same setup. But I think consolidation is good. I think there's too many in the market right now. But on the flip side of the coin, we're doing a bit in America at the moment. There's not a single branded Chinese car on the roads in America. So, there's still a big chunk of the world that they haven't even got started yet. So I still think there's a few more chapters in this story.
Well, I guess they're waiting to see who gets voted in, and then they'll work out if they've got an opportunity or not. But look, I guess that for the Chinese and consolidation, consolidation normally means that they can bring down price because it normally means they have efficiencies. So that's a worrying prospect to think actually, they could even bring price lower than they are at the moment to the existing players. If you, kind of to wrap this up, it's obviously clear that the Chinese market is here, and it is clear from the title that they are taking away market share at a rapid pace. What would be your advice to car dealers who are considering the Chinese brands, and what should they be doing for their pricing and their stock mix?
I think it varies for the new car and used car dealers. Obviously, I think a lot of the new car dealers have hedged their bets already and locked in Chinese franchises. If you're a used car dealer thinking about your stock mix and what stocks to have on the forecourt, I think maybe dipping your toe in the Chinese brands is not a bad thing. But if I was running a dealership of multi-branded used cars, I'd be waiting to see a little bit further how things play out on warranty. But I think for the top 3 most popular brands like the MGs and these sort of things, it doesn't hurt to try a few in the mix. But I would be holding off a little bit before I went all in on the entire range. Yeah, that's good advice. And I think the only thing I would add on to that is, I think let's think from a dealer's point of view about making sure that you are pushing your stock as fast as it can possibly go, because this market is changing very quickly. Of course, yeah.
And whether the Chinese products take off or not, you do not want to be stuck with old stock overpriced.
Exactly.
So I think, make sure you are pricing to sell.
Exactly. Great advice.
All right, perfect.
Thanks,
I'll
Craig.
see you on episode 5.
See you next time.
See you then. Thanks. Bye.